In 1986, Tom Cruise felt the need for speed in Top Gun. The enjoyably cheesy, adrenaline-pumping action movie where Cruise plays Maverick, a young, hot-headed, red-blooded, aviator-loving Air Force trainee for the US Navy, where Maverick dreams of one day being the best of the best fighter pilot. However, many question Maverick's ego and reckless nature, and feel that he's too dangerous to be a fighter pilot. So Maverick must prove to all his detractors that he can go beyond the danger zone and take their breath away with his skills, and prove that he is the right man for the job as he saves the day. Oh yeah, just feel the adrenaline. So, seeing how we're about to get a new Top Gun movie, a whole 36 years later, we're going to go back to the original Top Gun to explore 10 things that you didn't know about the movie that proves that Tom Cruise is a pro at flying jets and spontaneously singing You've Lost That Loving Feeling. So, let's check it out. Seriously, 36 years? Well, I guess better late than never.
I feel the need for speed.
Number 10, based on a magazine article. Top Gun was in fact inspired from an article from California Magazine, which is a general interest magazine. The article in question was published in May 1983 and was called Top Guns, and the article focused on the day-to-day life of fighter pilots of a naval air station in San Diego, with the base earning the nickname Fighter Town, USA. Producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer were a popular movie-producing duo of the 80s, and at that time had success with producing Flashdance and Beverly Hills Cop. They wanted to make a film based on the Top Gun's Californian magazine article, but had difficulties finding a writer who wanted to pen the script. Apparently a lot of writers didn't want to take part. That is until writers Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr. came on board. The writing pair had previously written the made-for-TV movie Izzy and Mole 1 year earlier in 1985, and after Top Gun they would go on to write The Secret of My Success, Turner and Hooch, Dick Tracy, and Anaconda. Wow, that really is a random selection of movies that they have written. Number 9, a commercial got the director the job. Top Gun supposedly had several big-time directors who were considered to direct the movie, including John Carpenter and, oddly, David Cronenberg. Yeah, I can't really see it happening. However, they turned the job down. Top Gun was eventually directed by Tony Scott, the late brother of Ridley Scott, and although he may have seemed like a logical choice to go with, as he did have several big movies in his filmography, including Days of Thunder, The Last Boy Scout, True Romance, and Crimson Tide, however, those films came after Top Gun. When Scott was hired, he only really had one movie to his name, that being The Hunger, a noir punk art house film about yuppie vampires. Yeah. Yeah, look, The Hunger couldn't be further apart from Top Gun, as it had no action and didn't feel remotely like a commercial movie. Once again, it felt more art house. However, what landed Scott the part of being the movie's director was a TV commercial that he had shot for Saab 900, which featured a Saab 37 fighter jet. So I guess Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer felt that Scott must know a thing or two about filming jets based on that one commercial. So he was hired and arrived at Naval Air Station Fallon in Nevada to film Top Gun. But the big question is, could he actually keep his job? Now that's another thing. Number 8. Tony Scott was fired 3 times while filming Top Gun. Now, to be completely fair to Tony Scott, he did walk into a slightly troubled production with Top Gun. As mentioned, the movie was written by the writing duo of Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr., and they weren't really seeing eye to eye with producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, whom rejected the first draft of Top Gun. However, when Tony Scott came on board, he had his own ideas as to what Top Gun should be. According to the website bulletproofaction.com, Scott saw Top Gun as being akin to Apocalypse Now, which, as anyone who's seen that movie will know that it's pretty intense and dark movie, which dives into themes of psychological horror. Unlike the more carefree, enjoyable 80s fest that would become Top Gun. Scott finally realised that Top Gun should be a rock and roll fighter jet movie, which is more in line with what the producers wanted. However, Scott would be fired 3 times during the movie's shoot. Once for filming shots of the movie's intro in slow motion. The second time was a costume choice issue, particularly with Kelly McGillis. And the third time he got fired was for having the helmet visors pulled down in a flying sequence. However, Scott leaving the set never actually happened. Something always ended up turning up which kept him sticking around. On one occasion when he was fired, he couldn't leave the location due to bad weather, so he thought, nah, I'll just keep filming anyways, and that's what he did. So despite continuously getting fired, he still managed to complete the movie. I don't know why I find that funny, but I just do. Number 7. Original choices to play Maverick. The most important piece of casting when it comes to Top Gun is without a doubt the casting of the movie's main lead, Pete Maverick Mitchell. And although Tom Cruise perfectly portrays the young, hot-headed, red-blooded pilot with a need for speed, he wasn't the original choice. According to Wikipedia, that was Matthew Modine, but he turned it down as Top Gun clashed with his personal politics. But if you dig around online, there are claims of other big actors who were considered to play the part of the hotshot lieutenant, including Scott Baio, John Travolta, Tom Hanks, John Cusack, Emilio Estevez, Michael J. Fox, and Patrick Swayze. However, all these actors either turned down the role or were just too busy. So they had to turn to a young man who had a love for that old-time rock and roll. However, number 6, Tom Cruise originally turned the part down. Several times. Tom Cruise was apparently sent the script for Top Gun several times but kept turning it down as he clearly wasn't interested in it. But I guess the producers saw something in Cruise and so they just kept on asking him. The producers found out that Blue Angel's aircrafts were going to fly around at a local air show, and in an attempt to win Cruise over, they got him to attend the show and fly in one of the Blue Angels. And despite filling up a vomit bag with what we can only assume was his lunch, Cruise was instantly won over, where he immediately contacted his agent and accepted the role of Maverick in Top Gun. Speaking of, well, using the assistance of bath bags, that wasn't just restricted to Tom Cruise. Throughout Top Gun's filming, actors for the movie would often sometimes be filmed in actual jets, but the footage that was filmed was usually unusable, on the account of the actors looking really sick and, once again, filling up their vomit bags. The only actor who didn't puke while flying was Anthony Edwards, who played Goose, as he seemed to be immune to motion sickness. And of course another actor who never got sick was Val Kilmer, who played Iceman. But Kilmer wasn't sick because he refused to go on the plane in the first place. Number 5. Other casting. So with Tom Cruise securing the part, what about the other important characters in Top Gun? Namely, the secondary character, Charlie Blackwood, who was actually based on a real person called Christine Fox, who was a civilian employee at the Naval Air Station Miramar. Actress and model Julianne Phillips was considered for the part, but the role ended up going to actress Kelly McGillis, of which her and Tom Cruise do have amazing chemistry. And interestingly, there are a few shots where we see her wearing a cap. That's because when those scenes were filmed, her hair was actually brown due to her starring in another movie when those scenes were filmed. In fact, Top Gun features a huge lineup of famous or would-be famous stars, including Val Kilmer as Iceman, who has a very icy rivalry with Maverick, Anthony Edwards as Goose, Maverick's best friend, with other actors turning up including Tim Robbins, Meg Ryan, Tom Skerritt, John Stockwell, Michael Ironside, and Mr. Strickland himself, James Tolkien. Man, didn't that guy ever have hair? Not like I could talk or anything. Number 4. Real on-set tension. So an important aspect of Top Gun was the on-screen feud between Maverick and Iceman. Two fighter pilot rivals who really don't like each other. And in some scenes you can just feel the tension between these two, suggesting that both Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer are pretty good actors. Well, they may not have been acting too much, as supposedly they didn't get along while making Top Gun, and behind the scenes they kept well away from each other. Either Tom would be hanging out with his fellow co-stars on set, or Val would be, but never both at the same time. And supposedly in the intense scene in the hangar, where Cruise and Kilmer look like they're just about ready to beat the bejesus out of each other, Kilmer ad-libbed a lot of his own dialogue for that scene, with Kilmer probably really letting Tom Cruise know what he thinks of him. According to the cheatsheet.com, something that could have been a contributing factor to this feud is that Kilmer was diving into method acting. And so for this, he actually became Iceman on the set and didn't like Tom Cruise, and purposely played up on the feud. But just like on the screen, it seems that the two did end up becoming wingmen in real life, as Cruise apparently insisted that Val Kilmer should return for Top Gun 2. Number 3. The music of Top Gun. Another standout aspect of Top Gun is its amazing, funky 1980s soundtrack, which features several pop songs that have become just as recognizable as the movie itself. Firstly, the movie was scored by German composer Harold Faltermeyer, who previously scored Beverly Hills Cop and Fletch. And he delivers a smooth and catchy 80s sound, which immediately reminds you of the 80s when you hear it. Then of course there's Danger Zone, the hard-rocking pop song performed by Kenny Loggins. Interestingly, Loggins originally was not going to perform Danger Zone. Originally it was intended that the band Toto was to perform the song, but the band had issues with their lawyers and the producers of Top Gun, so they were out. Then Canadian singer Corey Hart was approached to sing Danger Zone, but he turned it down. Till finally Loggins was approached, and thus the Footloose singer recorded the song that we all know and love, which actually revived his career and put him at number 2 on the Hot Billboard charts, beaten only by Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer. If Danger Zone was the fast action adrenaline pumping Top Gun song, then Take My Breath Away was the slower love ballad. When producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer and director Tony Scott heard a demo for Take My Breath Away, they were so impressed they added more romantic scenes in Top Gun to accompany the song, knowing that it was going to be a huge hit. Originally, new wave group The Motels were approached to perform the song, but it was fellow new wave group Berlin who ended up performing the 80s love song, and Take My Breath Away made it to number 1 on the charts, as well as winning an Academy Award for Best Original Song. In addition to that, Bryan Adams was also considered to record a song for Top Gun, but he turned it down as he felt the movie was very pro-war. Regardless, thanks to songs like Danger Zone and Take My Breath Away, the Top Gun soundtrack made it to number 1 in the Billboard charts and would be there for a whole 5 weeks. Mind you, I always thought that Take My Breath Away would be the perfect song to use for a Fresh Breath Mint commercial. So, I'm kind of disappointed that that hasn't happened yet. Number 2. A stunt pilot sadly passed away. Now we get to what is without a doubt the most upsetting aspect behind Top Gun, that being the tragic passing of one of the stunt crew. Now there is always an element of risk while making movies, especially action movies like Top Gun. Acrobatic pilot and aerial cameraman Art Scholl was hired by Top Gun's production to perform what's called a flat spin, and to film himself in his aircraft performing this maneuver, in order to capture it on film. However, after performing the stunt, Scholl radioed in, quote, "I have a problem. I have a real problem." It's believed that there was an altitude issue, and that he couldn't get full control over his plane after performing the stunt, and thus crashed into the Pacific Ocean. And to this day, his body and aircraft were never found. The tragedy, without a doubt, put a damper on Top Gun's production. But to pay its respects, Top Gun would be dedicated to his memory. Rest in peace. Bonus entry: the NES video game. So in 1986, to help capitalize on the success of Top Gun, the movie got its own video game, because back in those days, all big films had to be converted into video games, so kids can participate in their favourite movies in the comfort of their own homes. And although the idea of flying around in a jet engine and shooting enemy planes sounds like a sure win when it comes to video games, they took the whole flying in an F-14 a little too literal, as the game takes place in a cockpit, where you have to control your altitude and speed, along with all these other measurements and displays, making the game way too complicated for something as simple as the original NES. Come on guys, this is 1986, the day and age of Mario jumping on Goombas. We really don't need to overcomplicate things and get all technical. Just give me enemies to shoot and I'll be fine. And of course there's the notorious plane landing sequence, which as we all know by now has left many young gamers back in the day with post-traumatic stress disorders and needing to seek therapy. Not me though, I gave up long before that stage of the game. Hey look, I just don't need that added stress in my life. Number 1. The need for top box office dollars. Top Gun flew its way onto the big screen in May 1986, and it was insanely successful, bringing in just over $371 million on its $15 million budget. And it would take 6 months, I repeat 6 months, for Top Gun's box office numbers to drop lower than what they were when the movie was first released. So naturally, Top Gun was just an impossibly popular beast, a money-making juggernaut, and it goes without saying that it would become the highest grossing movie of 1986. However, its reviews were mixed, as not everyone was sold. While the action sequences and technological craft of Top Gun was praised, many felt that the acting and general story was just weak, or be that non-existent. It was felt that it was a movie made for pre-adolescents, who just want to see jets flying around and aerial footage, but everything other than that is just meh. But that initial reaction hasn't lasted, as Top Gun has gone on to become a beloved classic, and in 2015 it was selected for film preservation by the National Film Registry. Yeah, it has its moments where it's cheesy and cliched like it's no one's business, but that just adds to Top Gun's charm. As all said and done, it is very enjoyable. It has stunning aerial footage, mixed in with memorable songs and equally memorable lines, which instantly creates a recipe for a high-octane, action-packed classic, which is bound to stand the test of time and find a place in many people's hearts. So that was my look into Top Gun. To me, it's a guilty pleasure, but I still really enjoy it while I'm watching it. It's like a comfort food movie. If you just need a distraction, or cheering up, or just need to get your mind off things, you know that you can watch Top Gun and be entertained for 2 hours. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, that is fine. Anyway, I'm Minty, and I will always be your wingman. See ya!